Hello everyone and welcome to episode 4 of the second season of Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra Lourenco. I'm a music artist who is on a journey towards consciousness. I am not a licensed psychologist, therapist, or coach. All information I share here comes from personal experience and doesn't mean to replace any kind of professional help. All right, so today we are going to talk about criticism. Good and bad, okay, guys? Sometimes criticism is associated only with negative, okay? But we are talking about giving feedback. We are talking about offering advice, and that can be good or bad, right? So when I use the word criticism, please take that in consideration. All right, so we all engage in criticism sometimes, right? And we all received it at some time in our lives. Some people have a more natural tendency to be natural critics than others, and some have a harder time receiving criticism. But criticism can be good or bad. It can also be constructive or simply destructive. It can also be productive or pointless, but we'll get there, okay? We will split today's team in 2 parts, okay? On the first part, I'm going to talk about giving, when that is active criticism, okay? When we offer advice, when we criticize something. So when we are the active critics. This is when we assume the roles of the critic, that is when we criticize something or someone, okay? On the second part, I'm going to talk about receiving criticism. So it's the passive role when we are criticized about something. Let's start with the active role of the critic. So like I already mentioned, some of us have a more natural tendency to criticize and to state our opinions about something or someone. It all starts with what we see our parents do when we are children. And when I say parents, it can mean a role model, an adult role model. It doesn't necessarily need to be your parents, okay? It can be an uncle that was very important to you growing up. It can be a teacher. It doesn't matter. If your role model was a natural critic and was always criticizing, you as a child assume that, okay, this is the right behavior. This is what we should do, right? Usually, people who criticize have stronger opinions about what's going on around them. They are natural observers, and as they notice something, immediately their brain forms an opinion about it. There's nothing wrong about having strong opinions or noticing what's going on around you. That's actually a good thing. It means you're paying attention to what's around you and that you know exactly what you like or not. You can even be a constructive critic. That is, you can think about what you would have done differently if you were the one doing the thing you're criticizing. But when we are voicing our critics, we must observe ourselves. Where is that opinion coming from? And what's more, is it your place to criticize? So there are 2 types of active criticism, okay? Active criticism can be destructive and can be constructive. Let's start with the destructive one, which is the most dangerous of all. And a big no. So basically something that it doesn't add anything to anyone, okay? So today, it's so easy to criticize anonymously. Right? Behind the screen, using usernames, everyone can say pretty much what they want without fear of consequences. And as a result, many times we see the worst of people. We see the worst of criticism online. I'm talking about destructive criticism, that is, critics that come from the worst feelings of all and are only meant to put others down. Examples of destructive criticism are name calling, like, or saying, you suck, your work sucks, get a real job, you should be ashamed of yourself. In my case, I've heard, I don't like your voice, you look like a horse. That was the most I'm sorry, it's so ridiculous, but I've actually had someone commenting on a video that I looked like his neighbor's horse, and that was I couldn't even get offended because it's just ridiculous. But it's not funny. I mean, it's funny for me because I didn't take it personally. I just it didn't resonate with me, so I just assumed it as funny, but it's not funny to do that to someone else. So basically, this kind of speech is purely destructive. It usually comes from people who are so broken that they have a desperate need to put others down too. These people are afraid, insecure, have low self-esteem, and usually are incapable of creating themselves. And so they develop this hate, this envy or jealousy for people who are actually doing something or creating something. Okay? It can also come from people who are so identified with one extreme opinion that they get triggered when they see other people expressing the extreme opposite opinion. Okay, this happens, for example, with people who identify themselves very strongly with a political party or a football team, for instance. People who support other political forces or other football teams are considered the enemy, right? And so extreme forms of hate and even violence can come out of it. This kind of criticism is called destructive for one very simple reason. That's all it does, okay? It breaks people down. Its only purpose is to perpetrate itself, to cause more pain, to provoke more hate. No one wins with this kind of speech. It's very important to say. In fact, everybody loses. Usually the person who criticizes, who uses this kind of critics, can feel good in the moment, and this is because it is a form of venting your own emotions. When you do this, you're venting your own hate, you're putting it outside of yourself, and so you do have a high, you do feel good for a while, but you will definitely feel bad again after you do it, because, well, those feelings are still inside you. And how about the person who receives it, right? Well, we'll talk about this in the second part, okay? But it's quite obvious that no one likes to be the target of this kind of speech, this kind of destructive criticism. If you engage in destructive criticism, even if only when provoked, and this is really important, okay? Because some people say, oh, but they started it, and so it's okay for me to engage in it as well. Well, it's actually not, okay? This means that you engage in active destructive criticism, even if it's just on reaction mode, okay? If you do this, I challenge you to observe yourself. Why do you do it? Where are those feelings coming from? Even if you only do it when provoked, like even when you only do it in reactive mode, why do you let yourself be provoked? Why do you lower yourself to that level? That doesn't define you, since you don't usually initialize it yourself. Usually, if you allow yourself to be provoked, if you can control it, if it's a natural reaction in something that comes out of you and you can't control yet, this means that at a lower level than the provoker, you also have those feelings inside, those negative feelings inside. So when someone engages with you in this kind of behavior, what they manage to evoke are your own feelings, okay? So ask yourself, why do you do it? Why do you have those feelings inside? Why is it natural for you to react to this kind of behavior in the very same way? Did you grow up with parents or role models who did it too? Did your parents had to answer back when provoked in the same level? Some people need to have the last word to win the argument, to prove themselves right. But when you lower yourself to name calling or place sending, and you guys know this happens a lot when we're talking about destructive criticism, do you really win? Does anybody win? Or is it just egos talking between each other? I've engaged in destructive criticism at some points in my life, okay? I'm not a saint. I know what I'm talking about. And most teams that I talk about here, I may seem like an expert, or I may seem that I have them all figured out. But I've been there before. And even today, even though I have a higher dose of control and consciousness and awareness, I still lower myself to some levels of conversation that I'm not proud of sometimes. It's still a work in progress. I have to say destructive criticism is something that I rarely, I don't even remember going there in many years. Okay. But we're talking about the lowest point. And I've been there in my 20s, for sure. I don't remember taking the initiative, being the one initializing it. I'm not saying I never did. Okay. I'm just saying I don't recall it. But I definitely recall and remember answering and to destructive criticism with destructive criticism as well. Oh, I wouldn't lose an argument. I remember feeling so proud of myself because I can think in the spur of the moment. I can think really quickly and I can come up with really creative arguments and really strong attacking arguments. Okay. And of course, in the moment, just like I mentioned, I would feel good with myself of, oh, I'm so clever, damn, I showed you and things like that. But after I cooled my temper, I would totally feel bad. I would regret saying those things. And looking back now, it's clear that those nasty remarks all came from a very broken place inside myself. And of course, there was also generational trauma. My parents were very reactive, and I grew up watching them engaging in this type of criticism every time they were subject to it. So in reactive mode. I wouldn't say that my parents were the ones starting it. I don't ever remember them doing that. But if they were provoked, they would definitely lower themselves to this level. Besides, if you think about it, isn't this what we see in movies and overall fiction industry all the time? Like, how cool is the guy with the nastiest or the funniest or the cleverest remark, right? Even in music, so many songs are just pure destructive criticism. It's just about tearing other people down. So this is all a type of programming, but it can be worked around. It all starts with awareness. You have to be able to catch yourself before voicing this kind of criticism. Learn to control yourself. Learn to control it. It's okay to not say anything at all. It's okay to ask for time off if you feel like you are getting enraged, or if you feel like someone is evoking these feelings out of you. It's okay. And it's also okay to just turn away from this type of argument. Leave them hanging. Leave them without an answer. It's not easy, though. It's really not easy. But I assure you, you will start feeling really good about yourself once you start doing it successfully. And it gets easier over time. It just takes practice. It's just like learning an instrument. You have to keep practicing, and don't be too hard on yourself every time you fail or every time you slide back, okay? When someone says or has a different opinion from us on something, we can for sure state our own opinion and why we have this different opinion. There's nothing wrong in it. Sometimes there's no logic behind our opinions, right? It's just a matter of personal choice, like in football teams, for example. But I'm sure if you are a football fan, and I'm talking about football, but it can be any sports, really. But I'm sure if you are a sports fan, you have many reasons why you think your teams are better and why everyone should agree with you. Okay, I won't question you on that. But truth is, I'm sure we can find someone else who supports a different team that also has amazing arguments why that team is the best. So it's all a matter of personal preference, really, okay? And we just need to learn to respect other people's preferences and personal tastes, and to respect our own. And I think that's the most important thing, because if you respect your own opinions, right? If you accept that, okay, you can like that team, I like that team, and that's all okay. It's just a matter of, yes, but that's not my team, this is my team. And allow themselves to have a different team. And it's okay. So another form of active criticism is constructive criticism, okay? So we were talking about destructive criticism, which is just name calling, tearing other people down, saying that that person is wrong and you are right, and yada yada. So now we're talking about constructive criticism. So this is when we voice our opinions or preferences in a way that can be helpful to someone else. Constructive criticism can be positive or negative. So we can mention what was done right or wrong, or what we agree or disagree of by our own point of view, of course. And always remember this, everything we say, even if it's based in facts, it's still our opinions. And this is so important, because sometimes we say, oh no, but it's but it's true. For instance, I don't know, my phone, when it's turned out, my phone is black. And you say, this is a fact. Is it really a fact? Or is it the color black just a concept you have? And so it's a concept. So someone named this color black. So why is that a fact? Can be an opinion. Can come someone else who says, oh, but this is not called black, I call this color white. And yeah, by all standards, you are right and that person is wrong. It just means that more people will agree with you that this color is black, and less people would agree with that person that says the color is white. But is it really wrong or right? Or is it just a convention? So I know this may sound a bit, okay, that was cuckoo, but I'm sure you can understand what I'm trying to pass. It's just, we have to take everything with a cup of tea. Like, don't take things as absolutes.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
There's a truth in that, only Siths deal with absolutes. Be careful with absolutes. Be careful with wrong or rights, okay? Be careful with really, really strong opinions, because when we fall into that category that what we know is the absolute truth and it's what's right, we take the right of judging others who think differently. And most dictators happened because they believed in this. They believed they were right above everything else. And look at what happened, right? The biggest atrocities in history happens because we believe that we are right and other people are wrong. So be really careful about this approach, okay? Some people, usually constructive critics, I am a very constructive critic. I have that natural tendency. Anyway, we tend to see constructive criticism as something which is always helpful to other people. But that's not true, okay? Criticism can be unwanted or even inappropriate in some situations. We'll get there. Constructive critics will get there. So, for example, political parties. Let's talk about a really, really, really hard and controversial team, right? Some people have very strong reasons to support a specific party, okay? And these reasons can come from research they did, combined with personal experience and personal beliefs. So, for example, let me give you a really extreme example so you know what I'm talking about. If someone had a bad experience with a foreign person at some point in their lives, or has, for some reason, racist beliefs. It can be because they grew up with racist parents. So their role models were racists, and so they became racists in a sense that they absorbed that behavior. Okay, it doesn't matter. What matters is that this person who has these beliefs, either if it's because they were imposed by a role model as a child or because they had a bad experience, this person will most likely relate to a political party that is against immigration, for instance. They will most likely relate to a political party with racist beliefs as well. It's just a matter of logic, okay? And this party will present and most racist parties do. They present logical arguments, they supported by studies that they do to justify their racist positions, for sure. And to be clear, okay, and I want to be really clear on this, I'm not defending or trying to justify right-wing parties or racism in any way, okay? I'm just saying that strong feelings and opinions about something usually have reasons behind them, okay? People are not born being racists. They become racist for something that happened in their lives or for some influences that they have, okay? So it's possible to have a constructive discussion between people with opposite beliefs, okay? And it's amazing when it happens. I love watching debates where people are just sharing different points of view. They are justifying in a very polite and respectful manner why they have these beliefs. And it's a very amazing learning experience. I, for instance, love to see it. But it's also possible that it turns into a destructive argument, like destructive criticism that we've mentioned before. And we've all seen this happen in political debates on TV. We all see people behaving badly. We all see people that can control themselves. I'm just amazed why some people still vote on people who do this anyway.
You're going down, punk!
I don't want y'all doing nothing funny to me at the station.
Not my place, but it's not about the opposite beliefs. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. It's not about people having opposite beliefs. It's all about people's awareness and respect by each other's positions, even if we consider them not acceptable, like racism. I come from a family of constructive critics, and that's why I'm also that's one of the reasons why I'm also a constructive critic myself. Well, not that I am a constructive critic. I shouldn't say that. I should follow my own example. I come from a family where people tend to assume the role of constructive critics. And so I also have a strong and natural tendency to assume the role of a constructive critic. That was much better. Okay, so my dad, for example, absolutely loves to state what he would do differently if he was in charge of things. I just love him. I love watching and hearing him rambling about politics, the state of the country, economics, and even environmental issues. Talking about generations, my dad is 75, so he's a baby boomer, but he's very concerned about the environment. And I'm so proud of him because he recycles and he's careful. He has that awareness, which is not typical of his generation. And so I'm very proud of him in that sense. He reads a lot about these issues and he has a genuine concern for humankind. So much that he gets really mad sometimes watching the news and the TV. It's hilarious. It's not good for him. It's not good for him at all, but I have to I have to confess, he's hilarious to watch. Anyway, I don't agree with my dad's opinions about everything, okay? But I do love to discuss these issues with him. And many times we agree to disagree. We just have different opinions. All because we respect each other's point of view, even if we don't agree with it. And the most important thing is we both learn from each other. I've learned a lot from my dad when I was growing up. I remember when I was hearing him voicing his opinions, I was thinking, wow, my dad is really intelligent. He's really smart. He knows so much about everything. I really want to be like that when I grow up. So he did bring that curiosity in me and me wanting to know more, me wanting to have that kind of knowledge so I can voice a more informed opinion. And then when I grew up and I started catching up with his wisdom, I would start also to voice my opinions, and that was very welcome. My dad would want to hear my opinions, even if he didn't agree. And so that was important. And now we are in a point that sometimes he teaches me something, sometimes I teach him something. So it's a learning experience when we exchange opinions. And that's the magic of constructive criticism, is that if we are able to maintain a constructive level, if we don't drop into the destructive kind of speech, people learn, people grow, and both parties grow. It's not unilateral. It's an interaction, and that's the beauty of constructive criticism. Constructive criticism, negative or positive, enables learning, enables us to access new and potential useful information. But it's not always productive or welcomed. So, and now we are entering the verge between productive criticism or pointless criticism, okay? So sometimes when we offer advice to someone, advice is another form of constructive criticism, sometimes we are actually not being helpful. And why is this? Because the person, it can be because of many reasons, okay? But most times it's because the person who we're trying to help, the person who we're trying to offering advice, is not ready for advice, is not open to receive advice, okay? So next time you think about voicing your constructive feedback without being asked to, okay, this is important, try to understand why you're doing it, okay? Pause for a second and ask yourself, why are you doing this? And most importantly, try to understand if it's the right moment for it. Okay? When people are feeling very strong emotions, they are not in the right place for hearing your solutions. Okay? They are not ready for that yet. They want to vent. They want a safe space for feeling heard, understood, and accepted as they are in that moment. Okay? If you have a hard time with this, there's nothing wrong in asking. So if you don't know if it's the right place, if you don't know if, okay, I really wanted to offer, I really feel like I have some good advice, I really feel like I have something productive to say, but I don't know, I'm not being asked to, and I don't know if it's the right place. Because with time, you'll start to understand when it is the right time or not, okay? But if you struggle with understanding, there's nothing bad about asking, okay? Next time someone comes to you talking about something that concerns them, ask what they need for you. Sometimes we just need someone to listen. Sometimes we need a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes we just need a hug, okay? And do they actually need your input on it? So don't take offense, and this is so important, don't take offense if someone doesn't want solutions in that specific moment, okay? Don't take it personal. Don't make the situation about you, okay? If you have a hard time accepting this, I've been there, try to ask yourself why. Why is that? Why do you need to voice your opinion so much? What are you trying to prove? Right? Isn't this your ego just trying to show how better you think you are? Oh, I have a solution that you haven't think about because I'm better than you. This is something I'm working on, actually. I was always very straightforward in voicing my own opinions. And for a very, very long time, I thought I was always being helpful when doing so. But then I noticed that when the situation was inverse, and that is when other people were trying to help me with constructive feedback, that would sometimes actually annoy me more than actually help. And this is exactly why constructive criticism is not always helpful, is not always productive. Sometimes it's pointless because sometimes we are not on listening or learning mode. We are on venting mode, and there's nothing wrong with it, okay? It's just all part of the human experience. It's clear that all destructive criticism is pointless, right? It doesn't help anyone. Nothing good ever comes out of it. Constructive criticism, however, can be productive or pointless. It all depends if it's requested or given at the appropriate time and place and at the appropriate person, okay? Constructive criticism can also be pointless when we try to help someone who knows more about the subject than we do. There's nothing wrong with trying to help, okay? But don't forget to stay humble and recognize when people know more than you do. There's a saying, and this is all over the internet. It goes like this: don't take advice from people who are not where you want to be on the topic they're giving advice about. So I wouldn't say it like this, because sometimes people who are not from specific fields can actually provide really great insights. That has happened to me in the past, okay? I would say it like this: be careful when receiving advice from people who are not where you want to be on the topic they're giving advice about. So, but this, here we are talking about, we are entering the region of passive criticism. So when we receive criticism, so we'll get back to this. Anyway, one example of this is, be careful when receiving relationship advices from someone who is not in a healthy relationship from your specific point of view, because we all have different definitions of a healthy relationship, okay? Your definition of a healthy relationship, it's what works out for you, aligned with your values, and of course aligned with your partner's values, hopefully. All right, but we are not all the same. We cannot impose our ideal of relationship upon others. Okay, so all kinds of judgment are examples of pointless criticism, for example. So every one of us is unique, and as such we have different ways of expressing ourselves, right? Clothes we wear, hairstyles, music we hear, cars we drive or not drive. These are all personal choices, and it's pointless for us to spend time and energy criticizing. Okay, again, there's a whole media constructed around criticizing, especially famous people, right? Media loves to voice their opinions about what the famous people do, where, whatever they do or they fail to do, where they go, where they do not go. But all in all, this is all pointless criticism. While you're busy paying attention to what others are doing and voicing your opinions, you are actually missing out on the opportunity to make your own choices. Besides, if you judge others, you'll fear judgment yourself, which means you'll be afraid to express yourself freely. And if you don't allow yourself to express freely, you tend to think that other people are not in the right place to express themselves. And so we have a more natural tendency to judge others. So when I got my car, and here we go, I know.
Not again.
Part of me feared judgment. After all, I mean, it's a fire red sports BMW. I mean, I was asking for it, right? That was what that's what I thought about back then. It's a bold choice, especially for a woman. So, of course, since I feared judgment, of course I was judged and criticized. And even today, even though I had the car for 16 years, even today, I still hear your comments here and then. Nothing like what I heard in the beginning, but it's just because right now I'm on a different wavelength. I'm on a different position. I mean, I embrace my choice. I know it was the right choice. I absolutely love it. I wouldn't change that car for anything. I love it. And I also, now it's just, I take it with a cup of tea because, I know where judgment really comes from, right? And it comes from people who are afraid to express who they truly are. And they believe, most times they believe in conventions. How many times I've heard that's not the right car for you. And when I asked why you think that's not the right car for me, because that's not a woman's car. Oh, because it's not practical. Oh, because it spends too much gas and all of that. All those beliefs. And lately I've been hearing, and this is actually interesting because I've never heard this when I lived in Coimbra. So it's kind of a regional belief now. Here in Setúbal, I've heard many times people saying, oh, that's a doctor's car, or that's high-profile car. So here there's the belief that only people with high positions, like a doctor or a lawyer or something, only those kind of people are allowed to own higher brand cars like Mercedes or BMW or whatever. So I've never heard that before when I was in Coimbra. Now I got that already for several people, and it doesn't affect me. I think but I noticed it because I've never heard it before. So some beliefs are even regional. So it's all a matter of recognizing that these are beliefs, and you as an individual, you have the right to accept these beliefs or to refuse these beliefs, and there's nothing wrong with it. So this is all about active criticism, and we're out of time for today. Tune in next week. We'll talk about taking criticism. We'll talk about passive criticism. So this is when you are criticized. So we'll talk about how to handle with this type of critics, what to do, and all of that. All right, see you next week. Don't forget, comment this episode, put a like, share it, whatever makes sense to you. If you have suggestions for me, I'm at mail@sandralourenco.pt. See you next week.